Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting the Spooky Edition for the first time on camera. So you're seeing me do the finger thing that I always do when we say
I
Spooky Edition.
I guess everybody's not going to hear the bubble, or they're going to see that the bubbles are like not coming from anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll include the laboratory bubbles this year. Maybe we'll just.
Oh, well.
Well,
Okay then.
if I did, they stopped right now.
Yeah.
They just.
Um,
They cut out.
but we did just get back from Comic-Con, and boy, are my arms actually are tired. I had physical therapy today, so um, from holding a bag of stuff.
Yeah, Comic-Con. Record-breaking Comic-Con. Like,
Yeah,
legitimately record-breaking Comic-Con, the
and it
largest.
sure felt like it navigating it.
Holy crap, and you weren't there on Sunday. Your body and
My
soul
body was done.
tapped out, reasonably so. You did an extra day than me, because you were there with Joey on
Well, it
Thursday.
balanced out,
Yeah,
right?
it was perfect, but I have never seen the Javits Center so packed on a Sunday. Like, Sunday's crowd levels were like Friday's crowd levels, which was just
Mm.
and it was still, like, family day, so there
Which
were
were like Thursday's crowd
yeah,
levels.
and Sunday was still technically family day, so there were a lot of families there in like, in family cosplay and, families in trying to enjoy the con, and it was just, like, still Sardine City. But, yeah, I think this year is going to this is a prediction. I think this year is going to make a lot of companies and brands reassess what they save for New York Comic Con versus like what they
Yeah.
do at San Diego, because I think a lot of brands did not bring enough. Some, like, I think hit the perfect balance, but I think a lot of brands did not bring enough reveals with them to New York Comic Con,
Hmm.
expecting the normal level of New York Comic Con. And you had Tom Hardy showed up out of nowhere during the Sony panel, and they ended up showing the Venom movie. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio showed up out of nowhere to show
At the Marvel panel.
to show a trailer. So I mean, like, they had like legit star power there. Celebrities rolling in and out of booths, for signings and stuff. And I mean, it was just I've I've been going. Yeah, I
I,
mean, we've been going since we were kids. It's never been like this. It was
I think it was like the best toy turnout too, I feel.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, out of like all of the big brands, I mean,
Like more panels than we've ever had
yep, yep.
than we covered last year for sure.
Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, just hopefully next year, Reed Pop, if you're listening, don't put any toy panels in the River Pavilion, please. Don't don't do that.
Or just make it not like smooth jazz in between and change it to the old setup where the stage was not, it was not um like halo lit by the sun
Yeah,
all day.
cooking in a greenhouse, listening to smooth jazz for 6 hours was really just not an ideal situation to be in.
It wasn't great.
But
I mean, the information at the panels was great.
yep.
Shout out to all the panelists and moderators, but yeah, that was I was very happy to have had Excedrin on hand.
Well, if you are listening to this episode, once you are done with this episode, if you want some more New York Comic Con coverage or maybe missed it, uh, our last episode was chock full of it. So we've got
Hmm.
over an hour of New York Comic Con coverage, exclusive interviews, all that kind of good stuff. So
And you can see it all on YouTube
yep, booth
at
tours, all that good stuff.
youtube.com/AIC_podcast.
Nailed it,
Right.
nailed it, Dave. Good work. But this is our annual Halloween episode, and I know for
Hmm.
folks that have been listening to the show or enjoying the show for a long time, every year we have a special guest on, our buddy Dave, and he dies. He dies every year, and like magic, he comes back. This year we're gonna pull back the curtain, and we are happy to announce that for the second time, Dave has missed the podcast for a significant life event. So first was his wedding, and now the second time he's missed his annual killing is because he is a new dad. So congrats to best friend of the pod, Dave, and his wife Sarah on a beautiful baby girl. We will kill you next year, buddy.
Yeah, it's tough to kill someone in storyline when they're just married, but now that he's a dad, like, I don't know, it's going to be up to him now.
He said he's willing to continue dying. So we'll revisit that next year.
Yeah.
But again, this being an annual Halloween episode, we still want to keep the content spooky. And I think this year we can actually say that we're gonna make it spooktacular. We're gonna go up a level from just spooky. So today we're thrilled to welcome a guest who is no stranger to the eerie and the extraordinary. He is the mastermind behind the iconic Monster High line, a line that redefined spooky chic and made waves in the world of collecting. Now he's back with a hauntingly cool new project, Gravestone Guardians. Please join us and welcome the incredibly talented toy designer, Garrett Sander, as he shares the story behind his latest ghoulish creation and dives deep into what makes a collectible truly scream-worthy. Garrett, welcome to Adventures in Collecting.
Thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it.
We are super excited. Please do not scare us too much. Just enough.
Eric, that was a fantastically like Crypt Keeper-esque, like with the puns intro. So
I tried.
Yeah.
I was actually I was actually thinking when I wrote it that very thing. I was like,
yeah,
how would the Crypt Keeper do this? I wasn't going to do the voice though. I was spare you all of that.
As you get older, it's harder to do.
All the puns were very on par with Monster High too. We had a lot of fun with the puns. So
yeah. Well, we have, as you saw before we started recording, we have a little Skelector in the house. So she was very excited to meet Garrett. She was the green room experience this time around. So before we dive into everything, as this is a show about collecting, and we can see quite an array of things behind you there, what are you currently collecting?
Sometimes it's hard because it's like, what am I not collecting? If I like it, I usually buy it, but I'm really into, even though I don't work on the brand Monster High anymore, I'm still really into it. So I collect a lot of the Monster High stuff, especially this collector stuff. So always getting up to try and get on the site and get those dolls. Marvel Legends, I've been in it from like the beginning, so continuing to get all that. So just saw like the Sentinel and stuff like that. So super excited about all that stuff. Saving some money to order a couple extra because you can't just have one of those. And then, like I said, a little bit of everything. I'm rebuilding my Toy Biz collection from when I was a kid. I had a bunch of the figures from when I was little, but I've just been filling in the gaps and slowly collecting all the characters that I'm missing from the OG Toy Biz line too. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you're definitely gonna want that new Sentinel, the one that they revealed in New York Comic-Con. That thing is
the awesome. 97.
Yeah, the X-Men 97 one. It's great.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah, so just kind of starting from the beginning, how did you get into the toy business and wind up at Mattel?
So when I went to school, I didn't really know that you could be a toy designer. So I actually went to USC as undeclared. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I moved into the art. So I was getting like a BFA in art because I was looking at graphic design. And one of my teachers who taught painting, she was like, she saw that I was into toys because she heard me talking about it. She's like, oh, I have a ex-student who works at Mattel. Would you want me to connect you? And so she connected us together. And we talked, we had coffee, met and talked, but I was still in school. So I'm like, I don't know if anything's ever going to happen. But a couple months later, she's like, would you like to come in just for like a pretend interview? I told everyone at work about you and they all want to meet you, but we know you can't work, but they just want to get to know you. I'm like, okay. So I went in for an interview. It was this like wall of people that I was talking to. It was a little nerve wracking, but it was fun. It was a good experience, like doing the interview process and stuff like that. So I made lots of connections there. And then after I graduated, I think it was about a year after I graduated, they had a spot open up, a temp spot. And they reached out to me and said, hey, we have a temp spot. Do you happen to be available? And I was, and I interviewed for it and I got in. And so I started as a packaging designer at Mattel because my emphasis in art school was graphic design. So I actually started as a packaging designer and worked on the packaging designer for a couple years. I worked on Winx Club, a little bit of Polly Pocket. Then I moved over to the Mycene team and I got to oversee the Mycene brand for a little while on that. And then after being on the Mycene team catapulted me into being in product design after I came up with Monster High. So
So perfect segue there. Well, actually, Dave, before the segue into Monster High, USC, you also spent
Yeah,
some time there.
I was there for a month in high school.
Nice.
Did a little like short film program, which was fun. Great campus.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then, of course, once I was there, I found out you could do toy design. There's Otis, which is not too far away. So during the summer, I actually took a toy design course at Otis, and that was really cool to do too.
So
Very cool.
so what led to the design of Monster High?
So being on the My Scene team, My Scene was called a flanker brand because it flanked Barbie and it went after like a girl who maybe wasn't into Barbie, and so it flanks Barbie and goes after the kids who maybe aren't into Barbie. And My Scene was the sales were starting slow, so they were looking for a new flanker brand to sort of replace My Scene. And so we went shopping with 12 and 13-year-old girls because they're sort of like the aspirational for the younger girl. And we went to a mall nearby Mattel and watched what they all got money, and we just followed them around the mall to see what they bought. And then they talked about why they purchased it and stuff like that afterwards. And one of the girls bought a Sklanimals plush. And their tagline was "Dead animals need love too." And I was like, well, what if dead dolls need fashion too? And we did like a line of dead dolls, but it's like fashionable. And everyone, that's so funny. Oh my God, dead dolls. Can you imagine? Mattel's never going to make that. But like, I thought there was something there. And so did one of the marketing people. And I just went home thinking about it. And originally, like, it was like, oh, what if they're all zombies? But then I knew one of the things too is like we want to make sure that all the characters are very different from each other, so you wanted to collect all of them. And so like, how could they be really different? I was like, well, what if they're all just different monsters going to high school together, and like figure out how to be different from their parents. And so that night I actually drew Frankie, and so that's why Frankie's birthday is actually the day that I drew her. So it's the very first sketch of her, so that's what her birthday is, which is pretty fun. And went back, I was working on the idea, I was like fleshing it out a little bit, and then as I had like a little bit of a story, I was telling my coworkers about it. And they were like, oh my God, this is so cool. Can we help? And so we would get together at lunch and we brainstorm a little bit more around it, flesh out the world, add more characters and stuff like that. And then it came time, like they were going to be going into testing with the concepts the product team had, because I was still in packaging at the time. But the product team had, we said, well, we have this monster idea that we're working on. Can we show it to you guys? And they're like, okay. So we showed it and they're like, well, we can put it in the test. You basically matched all the stimulus that all the other stuff has, so you can go into the test with it. And so we were really excited. We were like, oh, they're either going to love it or they're going to hate it. Because like monsters, in terms of like when you're ranking things what girls like, it's like at the bottom of the list right above aliens. So like everyone was like, this is just never going to happen, But I think it was like put in the test to be like, let's put this to bed and then we don't have to talk about it anymore. But from the test, it like skyrocketed. Every group loved it. They wanted to know more. They were like, I want to go to Monster High. I want to know more about them, So that was really cool. And it was just a couple like black and white sketches and some bios that we read to them. And so from there, it sort of blew up. So we had started working on it in 2007. And then we just kept finessing and working on the line. And then it didn't launch until 2010.
Man. And like, do you have like a personal affinity for like horror and stuff like that? Like, so did this kind of come natural to you, or was it really just kind of out of that moment of, that the experience that you had with the test group?
Yeah, I mean, I when I was younger, I liked a lot of the more horror stuff. As I gotten older, I've gotten a little more squeamish for some reason, but I always loved the comedy horror. So like grew up on Scooby-Doo, absolutely loved it. That was like the introduction, for like a little kid. Addams Family loved, the Munsters I loved, all like the Ghostbusters and stuff like that. Always loved like the comedy horror stuff. And so like that was sort of combining. It's like, it's funny horror, but I always loved the way the monsters looked. I always thought that the Universal Monster stuff looked so cool. And so this is just taking how cool they are, but making them fashionably cool, as teenagers in high school. And they deal with a lot of the same stuff, we did as teenagers. They're just monsters. So it's slightly different than what we had to deal with.
So how did it feel to just see the line initially explode in popularity?
It was crazy because you never think this little idea that you had, like, one, it's going to actually get out there, and actually make it out into the world. Because there's so many concepts that happen, especially at a big company. And then two, it just, how big it got from the beginning. Like they couldn't air the commercial because there wasn't enough product in stores. Like there has to be a certain amount of product in store for a commercial to air. And they couldn't air the commercial because the product was selling out so fast. So it was so cool and a little bit, vindicating that, this monster brand that a lot of people were like, I don't know about, just like went crazy and blew up. So.
Yeah. And I mean, just thinking about kind of like culturally at that time, like I remember, in 2010 when they originally came out, like you had like the height of like the emo scene and like all that kind of like
got this forever.
Yeah, but it was just one of those things where I remember, because in 2010, like, me and my friends, we were already like out of that doll age, but all of a sudden, like, my friends that were Barbie kids when they were younger were like, as adults, or like, like older teenagers, like young adults, going back and
Yeah.
buying dolls again for the first time, because they were like, these are like weird and cool, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
again, that kind of like counterculture at the time, listening to My Chemical Romance, and posing, Frankie Stein and
Watching
Draculaura.
Rocky Horror.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, that aesthetic, I mean, to this day, I it's still, it's stuck, and I
Yeah,
love
for sure.
love seeing it. And you got, like I said, you got a 9-year-old that it's brand
Yeah.
new to her, and she's in love with it. And again, like, all of the fun little tie-ins, some of the things that you even referenced, like, the Addams Family and stuff like that now. So
Yeah.
it is a legacy. You have created a legacy for yourself
Hmm.
there.
Oh, well, thank you. I think, there are a lot of people who worked on it too to help it come to life, and that was one of the fun things too. Is like everyone who joined got so excited by it, and they just wanted to make it even better. And so like everyone worked really hard to get this out there and make it good. So like our entertainment team worked extra hard to get all of it done, because I think we had really great looking animation for YouTube webisodes. It looked beautiful. The animation team loved it. Even like our factory, I got to go to the factory in Indonesia, and as I was leaving, they're like, the factory workers want to know if you could sign some dolls for them. And they had never been asked any designer to do that before. So I felt honored, like, because they loved working on the product so much that they wanted to be able to get their dolls signed too. So like they were so excited to work on Monster High. So that was always so much fun, is like how excited people are about Monster High. So it just made me want to keep working harder too. So.
And I read, and I don't know if this is correct, but you have a twin brother as well, correct?
Yes, I have a
And
twin brother.
he helped out with one of the naming conventions, right? For the Monster High.
Yeah, he came up with our original tagline, "Freaky just got fabulous." So that was him. And I mean, he heard like all my ideas, and I bounced everything off him because he was at Mattel at the time too. So we've been lucky to work at a lot of companies together. So
Oh, that's awesome. Very, very
That's
cool.
awesome.
yeah,
A spooky family affair.
yeah.
Yeah.
So before we move into your current project, which we're super excited to talk about, you're now at Just Play Toys, which is another brand that we've had a lot of interaction with over the years, especially at some of the events that we've been to.
Hmm.
What are you working on over there?
So I've got two products out right now. I actually brought them with me since I'm at home. So this is the Hollow Bright Lantern. So this one is all about, it's basically a hologram pixie inside, but you can also make her come out. So if I set her to triangle mode, I don't know how well she'll show up on camera with the bright lights at her, but she can do it. Oh, did not click over far enough. Let me see. I tested it beforehand and it was working fine. Oh. Maybe it's because I opened her, but you see her in here and you get to play with her. And before she comes out, you have to earn friendship magic. And so you basically interact with her a little bit back and forth. And then once you've earned enough friendship magic, it will actually unlock and you can take her out. So you just turn the key. I'm going to do this, hopefully not hit myself. And she'll pop out the top.
That's super
And
cool.
so then you
That's
can
awesome.
you can take the doll in and out as much as you want. And so when you put her back inside, she reappears inside the lantern and you can play more games with her. And then your friendship magic converts to pixie points. So the more you interact with her, the more pixie points you earn, the more games and stuff you can unlock. So you can meditate with her, you can dance with her, you can make her food, you can chat with her. She has bedtime stories. So it's like a whole little video game system in this little pixie lantern.
Oh man, that's awesome. And that's out now.
That's really
Like,
cool.
That's available for people to purchase now.
Yeah. It's out now. So it's on Amazon, Target, and Walmart are all carrying it. So, and we've won a couple awards already, which is crazy. So this was the most difficult product I've ever worked on. So it's been nice to see, like, it's gotten a couple, like, I think got the Good Housekeeping Award and stuff like that too. So it's been pretty cool. It's been a very big learning experience too, working on something this complicated, but it was really fun. And then we have another small doll line that I worked on called Made to Order Cup of Style. So this one I've already done, but basically it's like inspired by Japanese ramen. And so you open it up, and what you do is you'll add water, and some paper noodles will dissolve away, and you reveal like an actual doll. But they've all got noodle hair, so they're all inspired by stuff. So this is Whitney Wasabi. So she's got like her little wasabi details all over her and stuff like that, like her little
That's
wasabi.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That is super
and
cool.
then you can reuse the cup. There's a little noodle tray in here that the there's little chopsticks that you use to get everything out with, and you plug that back in, it becomes a little spa for her to hang out in with a little jacuzzi. So you have that to reuse too.
There is nothing more fascinating in toy to me, like as like out once you exit, like, you know, your super articulated, like, realistic detail world. The most fascinating thing to me is how everyone keeps coming up with new ways to do these kind of like unboxing, like
Oh
blind
yeah.
box
Mhm.
sort of situations. And I that is the first time I've seen a ramen noodle doll, and that is high on the list for me as somebody who eats a lot of ramen. So
Oh, thank you.
that is very
They
cool.
turn out really cute. They're really fun. It's a fun little process to do, like, because the chopsticks, there's a little like little holders on it to make it easy to use for kids. So if they don't use chopsticks, they can grab things out pretty easy, and you fish out all the accessories and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun. We had a good time on it.
And it's teaching them a life skill of how to use chopsticks.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
super important life skill,
Yeah.
like 100%.
Hey, sometimes you don't have a fork, you don't have a spoon, but you got
Yeah,
chopsticks.
chopsticks.
So
Yep.
Hmm.
yeah. But no, that's super cool. And going from a company like Mattel over to Just Play, like, is there, you know, a big difference in terms of, you know, like the development cycle, or like the amount of kind of like leeway you have from a creative standpoint?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think we, because it just plays smaller, we can move a little bit faster. So there's not as many, like, the time between checkpoints is shorter because we don't have to have so many people look at it. So, you know, with Mattel, it's just such a big company. So many people have to see stuff in the process sometimes that it can take a little bit longer. There's good things and bad things with that. You know, sometimes you have more time to design, where sometimes you have less time to design. So it's, you know, six of one, half dozen the other sometimes. But I think at a smaller company, we do have a little bit more creative freedom too. So it's kind of nice because we have direct lines to the owner. Like, we talk right to him and stuff like that. So that's really nice. And they're very encouraging about, you know, ideas come from everywhere and stuff like that too. So there's a lot of great collaboration that happens.
Nice. So from the past to new, tell us about Gravestone Guardians.
So Gravestone Guardians is something I started working on. I was at Moose before Just Play. When I left Moose, I wanted to work on something of my own. I was taking a little break in between things, and I've obviously always loved monsters, but I also grew up on He-Man and She-Ra. I love them because not only was it cool, but they're also twins, like my brother and I. So, you know, it was really cool that He-Man and She-Ra were twins. And I've always loved the toys, how they look, and there was this resurgence happening, you know, with Origins, and there were all these other, like, lines like Legends of Dragonor and stuff like that were coming out. They're all on this scale, and I was like, oh, I'd love to create something that sort of matches into that, that I can combine my love of monsters and my love of, like, He-Man and She-Ra together. And so I was just brainstorming around one day, you know, like, okay, what if they're Guardians and they do this? And I was like, oh, what if I just make them Monster Guardians? Because it was always like, sometimes, like, the villains were always so much cooler than the heroes, you know, because they got to be monsters. So I was like, why don't you just make the heroes the monsters too? So started designing, you know, taking those classic monsters and creating what they look like if they were, you know, intergalactic guardians protecting their planet from a, you know, an evil infestation of people coming in to try to take over their planet. And that's how Gravestone Guardians was born. So
Yeah, I mean, I love the aesthetic of them.
Yeah, for sure.
The first thing I thought of when I saw them was like, oh, it's like, this is Princess of Power. Like, this is
yes,
She-Ra.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like, it looks like that same kind of vibe, you know. The way the cutlers pop, just the kind of the structure of the figure itself. So
Mhm.
really, really, really novel in that regard, to kind of continue in that lineage. So
Yeah, I feel like the articulation even is similar on
yep.
them.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. To have the 5 points of articulation on there. You know, I always liked it growing up, like the simple posability. I know I still love, you know, superposability too, but there's something sort of nostalgic and magical about just that 5 points of articulation.
Yep, retro has never been more popular. So
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
it's a
For sure.
so what led to the decision to take it to a crowdfunding platform?
I'd been working on it for a while, and I had bought some customs. I don't know if you guys know Adam Shira customs on Instagram, but he does customs like Shira figures. He sculpts Zonzo. So he was like remaking because the Star Sisters never came out. So he made the Star Sisters. He made Huntara, Octavia, all that would fit into the look and style of the original Shira. And I bought some figures from him. And one day I just asked, I was like, hey, would you ever be open to like sculpting something? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so we got together with another friend, Patrick, and we started talking about the line and what could we do. And, you know, it just sort of became like, I'll just pay and have it done for me. But then they're like, hey, you know, like, other people might like this too. And so I started the Instagram for it and started sharing like the process of like making a toy and how it works. Cause I know like there's so many things you can't see about making a toy, but because this is mine, I can share everything. So I can share the sketches, I can share the mood boards, and I could share all that information with people so they could see what it's like. And then it was moving along and we really loved how she was turning out and thought, we see all these other, crowd funds happen. Let's give it a try. The worst that could happen is it doesn't happen, but at least we tried, for something to happen. So we thought we'd give it a go.
Yeah, and it's the kind of roster that we could see in some of the design work there. But Vampsephone, did I get it right?
Stephanie, yes,
Vampsephone
yes, yes,
is the character that is there. She is
yeah,
awesome. The one that's up for 2 back now with a
yes,
Hmm.
Boltessa to unlock, right?
yes, yeah. And I
Um,
have Voltessa here too. So this
Amazing.
is all both sculpted by Adam. They look absolutely amazing. So
Very cool.
yeah, I love her little troll hair. We want to try to get some tinsel in that hair, so she's like got the electricity going through her hair. So
Man, seeing them in hand, it actually like they really do look like they're right out of that era too.
yeah,
It's perfect.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just like thrilled how they turned out. Like I have them on my shelf just so I can look at them even when I'm working. So
And I like too, the packaging design, the coffin shaped
oh
card
yeah,
back
yeah.
on the blister.
Thanks. Yeah, with a little crystal coffin that we want to have as the blister that holds them in place. I was lucky enough to get Simon Eckert was free, so he actually has done like official Motu art and stuff like that. So he was able to do a drawing of Amsephone, and he actually has a drawing of Voltessa that he did too. So I'm going to be unveiling that one too. So she's a stretch goal, but I'm going to unveil the art and stuff because it's just so beautiful what he did. So it just really brings the characters to life. I've been following him for a long time too, so I was fangirling when I was like, "Hey, could I get you to draw something?" He's like, "Sure, I have some free time right now." So
No, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
really
it's very cool.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's like cool to see too, like you were saying, being able to take everybody through the process, because I think, that's something that not a lot of people, as much as people kind of learn about the process, it's always good to kind of see more, because
yeah,
I think it helps people kind of understand really just how everything, even from a crowd, whether it's a crowd-funded project or just, kind of like a main big company project, like this is the process.
yeah, yeah. Either way, it's a big process and it's a lot of work.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of assumption too, like people
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't realize it's like snap your fingers and the toys on the shelf. We've said this countless times on the show, but like the average lead time, even for like a big company, like you're looking at like 12 to 18 months, right? So
yeah,
and
yeah,
you're doing this pretty much by yourself. So
yeah.
it's quite a lift, quite an undertaking.
Yes, for sure. But it's been so much fun. Like, I mean, I know that I design toys during the day, but it's really nice to be able to work at a company where I can work on my own stuff too. And they're like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." Like, because I went to the company, I was like, "Hey, I'm working on this concept." And as I was starting, they're like, "Yeah, you can keep working on it. Not a problem." So it's really cool that Just Play is letting me to continue to work on it. And I'm having so much fun. I've designed a whole bunch of characters for it, and I'm working on all the villains now because Queen Infestation is the villain. So all the villains have like a bug theme to them. So there's Queen Infestation, so she's sort of got like a cockroach theme to her. So like they infest in the hundreds, and then there's General Odora, so she's got like a stink bug theme to her, so she's like extra big and super strong. So it's like Odora instead, and she has like pheromones that she uses. Queen Infestation can actually, infect people and control them then. So it's sort of like the Borg in a way. Like she can infect them to get them to do what she wants and mind control them. And then General Odora has pheromones that she can use to get people to do what she wants. And then in the lineup on the backer kit, there's General Mothric, who is these are all her children. All the generals are her children too. So, but he's like got like a moth theme to him, and he has like light base powers. So it's such a fun creating characters is always so fun. And it's like diving into the research and looking up all this stuff about like the different bugs and like what they can do is really fun too. So
So
now
in
you've
terms of
mentioned. Oh,
Oh, I just
go
wanted
ahead,
to ask
Eric.
one thing. So,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of the ghoul verse, right? As you're
yeah,
creating it, are there plans to do kind of any other media with this, like maybe a comic book, anything to kind of support this kind of big story that you're telling?
for sure. I've been, writing all this stuff down, and I want to do a comic book because that's sort of the easiest uh, form to get out right away. I mean, would I love this to be a cartoon? Of course, that would be amazing, but that's also a lot of money to do a cartoon. But I think a comic book is feasible. And that was one of the things too, like if we could get to a certain point on the crowdfund, maybe there'd be like a little bit extra so I could sneak in a comic book into the cost of stuff too. If not, I plan on working on it anyway. But yeah, I'm working on like story options because I always loved how every He-Man character came with like a different little mini comic.
Yep.
That was also the inspiration for all the diaries with Monster High, was those He-Man mini comics. Like, how can you give the people more information about something? But it's right there in the toy. They don't have to go online. You can get it right there. And so I would like each character to come with like a little bit of a backstory about how they became a Gravestone Guardian.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, that's one
Very
of those
much
things
so.
that I still think, like, even in today's, like how digital everything is, and QR codes and all of those
Yeah.
things. I think especially when you have and we've seen it before in a couple of other indie toy makers, but like some form of storytelling when you don't have access to that media, right? So like we've
Yeah.
seen
Mhm.
um Jason at Animal Warriors of the Kingdom with the amazing comic that he has that accompanies that. Even some of the
Yeah.
stuff that Plunderlings have done. Just these kind of like little bits to kind of string people along, give them a little bit more to chew on, and kind of get into that world.
Yeah.
This
Well, even some of the Motu stuff still has comics
oh
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
My
Yeah.
favorite thing so far that Motu has ever done, and I was never really a big Motu guy. I think I was a little young for it, so it was kind of gone by the time I was ready to play with action figures. I played
Yeah.
with Dave's, but recently with the Ninja Turtles crossover, the little comic they included in that was
Yeah.
just like, oh my god, this is amazing! Like how they're actually making it like quote unquote canon in that
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
mhm.
It's like this is so batshit crazy, honestly. But like I'm in. Like you got
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Eric, for you, like the He-Man that was your age appropriate was like Ponytail He-Man, the reboot.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, it sure was.
Mhm. So what's next after the campaign funds for Gravestone Guardians?
So if we hit that goal, we'll get to work on, getting Femme Symphony out there. And actually, I already went ahead and unlocked 2 of the stretch goals. So there were variants of her. So there's the crystal variant where we'll mold her in like a translucent pink with glitter in it. So you have like the crystal version of her. And then one where we'll chrome her. So she'll be like all nice, super shiny. So her armor is all chromed. So getting those 3 out. And then working on, like I said, hopefully getting a comic in there and stuff like that. And then I'm going to continue working on getting the additional sculpts done. So, I have Vamsephine and Voltessa done. Adam's on board to keep sculpting everything. So, hopefully, I'm looking to probably do like Queen Infestation X. We'd like to get a villain in there. And if this crowdfund does well, then maybe we can get another one, in a little while's time once we've gotten all this taken care of to get some of the other characters into the world as well.
Yeah, because we're a when it funds, not an if it funds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
Exactly.
it's very important. It's very important.
Yes.
We only
Mhm.
put that good successful energy out into the world.
Yep.
We do not operate in a world of ifs, just wins.
Just wins. Yes. So no, it's very exciting. It's been a lot of fun to work on. Just living in this little Gravestone Guardians world, And what I love about this time too is there's so many creators who can like make their stuff happen too, and I feel like it's a really great time for like the independent toy designers and the independent designers and like actual designers who've maybe been working in the industry for getting to do like their own thing. Like take that thing. You don't have to like filter it through a whole bunch of stuff. Go through a whole bunch of meetings. You can take that raw idea and actually get it out in the world. So that's really cool too. So
I think
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's beneficial too right now is like, you know, collectors have never been hungrier,
yeah,
and they're to a degree we're all on kind of like plugged into the back of our skulls this nostalgia feed, like all of
yeah,
the things that we've loved our entire lives, either coming out in some retro form or some modern twist, a new
yeah,
way. So like it's like, what's a new IP, something new, a new property
Mhm.
that I can grab onto that kind of scratches that itch too.
But we'll go with this thing that I have already.
That's the other
yeah,
thing, right? Like it
yeah,
either scales with something that I already love, or like it is
Mhm.
aesthetically similar to something that I already love. So this exists in that kind of sweet spot where it's doing a couple of those things. So it's exciting.
No, thank you. It's been so much fun. So, and I think just when you're a designer, just getting to get your stuff out there and having people see it and look at it, and getting likes, it's always nice that stuff too. So
Now, you mentioned like a couple other characters that you had already kind of planned out. Is there more beyond that that are just kind of in like the almost like the gestation period, or and even like stuff like you know in the playset idea or even vehicle idea? Like how kind of far down the rabbit hole does Gravestone Guardians go in a way?
yeah, I've designed all the main guardians, as I'm calling them. I want to leave it open, so that other guardians can appear. So there's Vamsephine and Voltessa, but then there's also Skultania, so she's the skeleton, and Ghostoff, who's the ghost. And then there's Rapture, who's the mummy, and Rockandra, who's the gargoyle. And then I've done some sketches and stuff, and I posted them online on Instagram too, of like what Castle Gravestone could look like. So just the concept of like this sort of big coffin shaped thing with giant gargoyle guardians out front, and then it's surrounded by the Forest of Fright. So like those open up to become play areas, and then it would come with the guardian of the castle, who is Diamond, but it's Diemond, and so she's forged from the blood of all the original monsters to create the protector of the castle. So creating this lore and building this whole world has been a whole lot of fun. So, and definitely thinking about vehicles. I'm not the best at drawing vehicles, so I've been thinking about them, but I haven't put them down on paper yet. But I think we could have a lot of fun with like how do they get around
Yes,
Monsteria, which is their planet.
some sort of coffin based vehicle.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Or hearse or something. Yeah.
Oh, a hearse, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some sort of like flying hearse, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So this next
But
section,
love some good lore.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next section here of our show, we know how important it is for our followers, our listeners, to get their questions in. Not everyone has the opportunity to kind of access the amazing creators and artists that we have on the show. So we have prepared a few questions from you that we have, or for you, excuse me, that we have kind of culled through the many submissions that we got. So before we jump into those, Dave, remind our listeners how can
It's been a while. I'm a little rusty.
Yeah.
Now that I have a camera, I've got to like have a thing to do.
Yeah. Remind our listeners, remind our watchers, how can they submit questions for future episodes of Adventures in Collecting?
Yeah, so I'm going to look directly at you, all of you, especially you, but maybe also you. Now, we have Instagram and X and TikTok and Facebook, and we are at AIC_podcast. Also on YouTube. Watch the video portion of this so you can see that I'm pointing directly at you. And you can follow all of those things. And when we have a new guest announcement, it's going to come up as a post on Instagram, and it's going to come up with a story. And inside that story, there's going to be a little box that you can tap on. And it's going to say, hey, do you have any questions for this guest? In this case, it's Garrett. And then you can send in your question like a bunch of people did. So I'm very proud of you, but specifically you for sending in a question. And, we will read that question. We'll read your handle, and sometimes I will stumble over them, and that's okay. But we will ask that guest that question, and Eric's going to let us know how that's going to work today.
Nailed it, Dave. You nailed it.
Thank you.
It's been you've been spared of having to do that spiel for a few weeks.
It's been a few weeks. It's like a month or so.
Yeah. But you nailed it. You nailed it, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. So, our first question, Dave, I'm going to take this one because this comes from friend of the pod, Elise Explosion. So fun fact about Elise here. We went to college together, and she used to host at our college, used to host a radio show. And she invited my band at the time onto the radio show to premiere our song, and we were trying to get signed. And I completely lost contact with her over the years. And then we reconnected over toys because she does some really cool unboxings and is like a doll YouTuber. So
That's awesome.
What a world, right? So
yeah.
So friend of the pod, Elise Explosion, asks, Has the shift from 11-inch dolls to smaller figures presented any unexpected challenges?
I would say not today. I think designing in the past, things getting smaller was a lot harder, but with the technology today, especially with like 3D sculpting stuff, we can look at things a lot faster. And I've designed some stuff when I was at Moose that were smaller dolls too. So it's just learning through that, I was able to understand how to scale things down. And even when you're starting at 11 inches, you're already so small. So starting even smaller, you can sort of take some learnings and stuff like that, and you learn what fabrics to use that will work best on it and things like that. But it hasn't been a huge challenge. There's challenges as you go smaller, just making sure you're picking out the right fabrics and do the proportions look right as it gets smaller. You have to watch that type of stuff. But I haven't found any major challenges in going down a little bit smaller for Gravestone Guardians.
All right. At Mats_Luna asks, what advice would you give to new toy designers that are trying to get their foot in the door?
Try to make connections. I know it's not always easy, but we live in a digital age where a lot of the designers are online. So try to find them. A lot of times they'll post their work and things like that, or you can search, like toy designers, and it'll come up on like some of the art station type places. You can see what they're working on and just reach out to them. Now, everyone may not get back to you, but I got lucky and somebody who's working in the company was willing to talk to me. And so just making those connections always helps, and being, a little open to talking to people and trying to reach out and get some feelers out there, I think can do wonders of getting your foot in that door. And just knowing someone at a company can get you an interview or lead to them sending you to talk to somebody else at the company too.
So we can actually double down on that, because at New York Comic Con, one of the panels we attended, like true story, from Mondo Toys. So at Fanplastic 4, yeah,
And Plastic 4,
yes.
yeah.
So he now works at Mondo because he designed really cool looking The Real Ghostbusters figures on Instagram, and Peter Santa Maria at Attack Peter saw them. They happened to be trying to vie for that license at the time, and they were like, oh my god, look at these figures that this guy designed like on a weekend, and gave him basically like a trial run, and now he's a designer at Mondo. So do your thing.
Post your stuff online. That's how an illustrator that we have, whose name is Darko, he just posted fan art, and it looked so good and so close to what our actual art was that we were like, we need more artists, because it was Kelly Riley did all of our art, and she's so amazing, but we were bogging her down with so much work because we had so many characters to draw. And so I just reached out to him and be like, hey, would you be open to doing a test for becoming a official Monster High illustrator? And he's like, yes. So, and then he's now known in the doll community for his amazing art, and he works for MGA and all these other and Disney and all these other companies doing art for dolls. So
amazing.
You never know, everybody.
Yeah, you never know. And so many of the
shot.
And it's like a little family in the toy world. Everyone knows everyone. So, if they see something they like, they're talking about with other people. And so sometimes it gets around. So,
well, there you go. Our next one comes from, I'm going to go with NYG Mobble. Yeah, let's go with that. At NYG Mobble asks,
that's what I would have done.
Where are the first Monster High prototypes today?
So everything that we worked on would get packed up and put into the Mattel archives. So they're somewhere in the Mattel archives, but we would get everything packed up nicely. It'd go in a box, get labeled, and then it would go off to the Mattel archives. So they're living in the archives somewhere.
So maybe one day when Monster High ends up in the I think it's called the Toy Museum in New York, maybe
in Rochester,
maybe when they get into the museum one day, maybe you'll get to see some prototypes.
And that was one of the exciting things working at Mattel, because they did have an archive. Darren and I got to work on the She-Ra reboot, and we got to do the 2016 She-Ra Comic-Con doll. And so we were looking for She-Ra stuff. And we found out that when Scott Knightlick was there, he searched for all the He-Man, but they never did a She-Ra search. They never did Princess of Power or She-Ra. And so we had all these boxes brought out from the archive. We were just digging through them. We found the Star Sisters prototypes, like the actual prototypes. We found an actual hand-painted proof for the backer card for them and stuff like that. We found the Whispering Woods playset that no one ever knew existed. We found Polaroids of it. And so we gave all those pictures to He-Man.org, and they posted all of them. And we talked about it at one of the Power Cons. But that was really cool, being able to go through the archives and see all that stuff. Oh my God, we're holding the Star Sisters, So maybe someday that'll be be, a young designer. They just search for Monster High and somebody brings out the original prototypes and they're like, what? So
That's awesome.
yeah.
At Christina Romero Leva asks, what do you think is the secret of good design?
It's so hard because everyone has their own opinion, but I think a lot of times in your gut when it's good. Like, I just felt like there was something with Monster High that was there, and that's why I kept pushing for it. And when people would join, they're like, "There's just something here that we love." And so I think sometimes there's just like this gut feeling that you can't really explain, you can't quantify or qualify really, but you just keep pushing and moving forward with it because it just feels right. So, and I think if you love something and you keep working on it, you're only going to make it better. Don't be afraid to change things too. Like sometimes the first drawing that you do isn't the most perfect. Be willing to, reiterate and go back and look at it sometimes. And even if it's so far along, you're like, I don't know if I could change it now. Sometimes changing it up will make it even more perfect. So
the good old artist's intuition.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And our final Q&A question here comes from @SummerDolls, and they ask, what are your thoughts on Monster High G3?
I love that Monster High is continuing. Even though I'm not part of the brand, it's so cool that something I worked on and I helped build is still continuing on, and there's a whole new generation of fans who get to enjoy it. They're also getting to do a lot of things that we weren't able to do. So I think the brand is a lot more inclusive than we were able to be back then. There's so many concerns like, can we do this? Can we do that? It's not the right time. So it's really nice to see that happening in a lot of kid shows, especially on Monster High, because that's what Monster High was always about. It was, there's these monster kids who can't hide who they are because they're literally monsters. And so being able to be yourself, be unique, and be a monster, that's what the brand is all about. And so I'm enjoying, it's fun to see somebody else's take on it. So like, how are the characters slightly different? What's happening to it? So, it's a surprise for me too. I get to learn about everything, relearn about the brand. And, it's one of those things like I still love, cool, fashionable teenage monsters. So I get to enjoy the brand again as well. Is it exactly what I would do? No, but I don't think it makes it wrong. I think it makes it interesting and fun to see what somebody else is bringing to the table. So I hope Monster High gets to continue on. And what's nice about G3 is only reinvigorated G1. Now we have this collector line, and we get the Creep Productions where they're remaking some of the original dolls. So that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that's coming out through that Skeletor line, like on the Mattel Creations, like the Addams Family, the Wednesday and Morticia set, the RuPaul, like, I mean, they're like they're doing some insane collaborations and crossovers.
Jenna Ortega Wednesday.
Yeah, and Enid,
it's
right?
really cool.
Enid's out now.
Yeah, Enid's out. So yeah, it's really cool to see because we actually pitched that when I was still at Mattel, was doing like a collector line. So it's really cool to see like it finally happened because I know that everyone who worked on the team was like so excited, like we can do like Monster High's big enough, we should be able to pull in these other companies and go back and do these monster horror movies and do what's the Monster High version of them. So it's really cool to see it actually happen now. So my favorite's been Elvira because I was pushing for Elvira to be involved in the beginning. We tried to get her to be a voice in the show. We tried to have her be a character in a couple of the things. It just never worked out, but I was so excited when the Elvira doll finally came out. So
yep. Cassandra's having quite a career resurgence, and mainly through toys. Like between what Blaine's doing with her over at NECA, it's like she's almost as big as she's ever been.
Yeah,
I've got my little Elvira there and there on her little thing. Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to see where I bought.
And then Elvira's over there.
I bought the Pride one over the summer, and
oh, nice. Yep.
I've
got that one somewhere too.
It's awesome.
I've got the other two, the black and the red here. I think Pride's upstairs. So.
Yeah. But shouts to Blaine, friend of the pod, Blaine,
and Elvira. Everybody loves Elvira too.
Who doesn't love Elvira? National treasure that woman is. All right, so that concludes our Q&A. You survived the spooky Q&A. But before we let you go and let you out of the creepy Adventures in Collecting podcast dungeon, I'm trying at the very end, just trying to lay out.
I was just gonna say, like, should have had like a creaky gate open and close for the beginning and end of the Q&A.
Listen, like all of these wonderful ideas are edits that are just kind of beyond my prowess. I'll try because the whole thing. So Garrett, at the top of the show, he mentioned the bubbles, and one year, the first year we did the Halloween episode, he was like, "Oh, ignore the rainstorm outside and the thunder and lightning and the bubbles." And this was before we did video, and I'm just sitting there like, "You son of a bitch!" Like looking up through sound libraries trying to find sound effects and stuff. But now we're on video.
No, I was like, is there gonna? I think I said, is there gonna be like bubbles, like a laboratory?
Yeah, and then guess what?
And there were the whole episode.
This guy put bubbles in like we were in an Ed Wood film.
Yeah.
It's real.
All we needed was a theremin.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's real shoestring over here. So we do have a tradition here on the show before we let you go, where we have a final question that we ask all of our guests. And since you are a new guest, you get the original, real final question. We didn't have to come up with some sort of alternate for you. So, Dave,
I had to try to remember it.
you got this, though. You got this.
Yeah.
Dave, would you like to fulfill your role as this podcast's James Lipton and ask our final question?
Why, yes, I would. Our final question that we ask all of our guests: what is your favorite and/or strangest piece in your collection? It can be one of each, or it can be both.
Oh, so hard. I have to pick one Monster High thing because I'm very proud of the black and white Frankie that we did for the first Comic-Con. Just doing like the homage to the classic films, and I got to design both the doll and the package for that one. So like it's sort of like the whole complete thing, like the way it opens and everything like that. So that was really fun. So I love that I have that in my collection, and it's in other people's collections too. I think my weirdest, I would have to, I don't know that it's weird, but I have a couple prototypes from like toy lines that nobody really loved. I have a couple prototypes from Captain Simeon and the Space Monkeys. So I have the original like hand sculpted Shaolin, where she had like white hair and she's in a different outfit and she's held together with rubber bands. So she's like cast. And then I have a couple of prototypes from Ultra Force. That Galoob line, I don't think, I mean, I loved it as a kid. I don't think that many people bought it. It was on clearance at KB, but I have a couple from Ultra Force. So I have like the wax of Queen Topaz, because I got to meet the sculptor Scott Hennessy when I was at a convention. He was right next to me, and so I got to get that from him. But then I didn't realize years before I got to meet him, I had purchased, there was a character, I think it's Rave. The character's name is Raven. She never got made, and I have her prototype too. So it was like kind of this cool kismet thing getting to me. I'm like, oh my god, I have something that you sculpted. So some of those early prototypes that I got off of eBay forever ago when I was in college, just searching for a prototype toys. So.
That's amazing. Another mention of Scott Hennessy, I think, comes up more on this podcast than just about any other name. That dude,
quite often.
He is so nice and he's so talented. I love on his Instagram feed, he'll just post like these random things he worked on. Like, oh my god, I had that, you know. So it's really fun to see his stuff. So,
well, that is awesome.
Very cool.
So before we let you go for real, plugs. So tell our listeners, our followers, where can they find you on the internet, and where can they support Gravestone Guardians?
So I'm at Garrett_Sander on Instagram, and then it's Gravestone Guardians, one word, on Instagram too. There's a Facebook page for Gravestone Guardians too. I'm not on Facebook as much, but I'm trying to be better about posting to both platforms, since now that you can tie them together a little bit better. And then I do have a website for Gravestone Guardians, which sort of holds the bios for the characters and stuff like that. It's gravestone-guardians.com. And it's on BackerKit. So the crowdfund's on BackerKit. I have a link in my stories and my bio on Instagram, or if you just search Gravestone Guardians on BackerKit, you'll be able to find the campaign.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that we put links to all of those things here in the show notes, so that way you
Awesome.
can go
Thank
down,
you.
click links,
Yep.
follow, all that good stuff, and definitely support Gravestone Guardians. We're excited.
Yeah, let's get more toys out there, everybody.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, we want to save the Ghoulverse, so we got to get them happening.
Save the Ghoulverse. And when do they have until for this campaign?
November 3rd is the last day of the campaign, so it ends at November 3rd at midnight.
Okay, so as of the airing of this show, you have just a few days left. We all know how these campaigns work. There's a surge in the beginning, and there's that big surge at the end. So we want you to take your energy, and we want you to use it to save the Ghoulverse.
Open up a couple pieces of candy. We know you got them.
Yep. Yep.
Take them out of the pumpkin, open them up, use that energy to back.
Yep. Well, Garrett, thank you so much for joining us on Adventures in Collecting for our special Halloween episode. Dave, send us home.
Let's get some more toys out there, everybody.